Hi guys, it's Michelle, and today's video is going to be all about a TV show that I really love, Glee. I have wanted to do a video about Glee for a very long time. However, honestly, I didn't grow up as a Gleek, I will say. I didn't fully watch Glee until this year, actually. Like, I had seen parts of it in 2021, I think was the first time I watched or tried to watch it fully through. When I stopped after the Muppet episode, like, I was just like, I can't do this. This year, I committed and decided to watch the entire show. I love it, like, so much. There are a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding Glee. A lot of people think that the show is cursed because there is a lot of death and darkness, honestly, surrounding the show, and I didn't really realize how bad it was until I watched it for the first time. I had heard about this theory, but I didn't realize that like 3 of the main actors passed away. If you've never seen Glee, to like put it into perspective, that'd be like if 3 of like the cast members of Friends, they were the main cast, and it's really, really sad and scary. So let's get into it. First, I want to talk a bit about, and we're gonna kind of refer to this often. A documentary was released in 2022 called The Price of Glee. This is definitely a controversial documentary. A lot of the Glee cast spoke out against this documentary, calling it like a piece of shit. It's still interesting, but I do agree that like for the most part, the cast of Glee was not in the documentary. There was a lot of stand-ins, there was a lot of crew members, like hairstylists, makeup artists on the show, detailing the events of Glee, which I'm sure they have their own stories as well. Obviously, it's a lot different than hearing it from the cast or like, you know, Ryan Murphy himself. We're kind of gonna go a bit chronologically on some of the dark sides of Glee. I'm gonna start from the beginning. I feel like the beginnings of this theory really start within Leah Michele and Cory Monteith's relationship. They dated very early within the show, and honestly, I never found that surprising because Finn and Rachel obviously were dating. It's like that classic forced chemistry. You're forced to act like you're in love with someone. It's, you know, a lot of times happens where they actually fall in love. The thing that I found interesting was in the Price of Glee documentary is that they were really skeptical about Leah and Cory's relationship, and in a weird way that I kind of didn't love. Just because I think you can call out Leah Michele for a lot of things, which we're gonna get into, but I think it's kind of unfair to like talk about Leah Michele in the way that the Price of Glee was talking about her. The sense of her and Cory's relationship, and we're gonna get into all of it. But I will say the documentary really pointed at the idea that, you know, Leah and Cory would have never interested in each other in like an organic way, and the only reason that Leah was interested in him is because she wanted to bring the fame of like Rachel Berry and Rachel and Finn and wanted like the fans to ship it so that it would gain more popularity. But I kind of don't believe that. Like, I just think that sometimes mismatched pairs, you know, can go together and end up together. Because I agree, like, I do think that the pairing of Cory and Leah is kind of confusing because people have talked so much shit about Leah Michele from the set of Glee, from the set of other projects that Leah has worked on. She overall seems very difficult to work with. Cory was like described as such an like easygoing guy, like very sweetheart vibes, the little Canadian. It didn't seem like him and Leah would have liked each other in real life, but obviously they did, and I don't think that Leah only dated him for publicity. But I mean, I don't know, I guess. I thought that was weird, and there was some other stuff that we're gonna get into regarding Cory's death that I felt like they blamed Leah for that was very strange. I will get there. But first, let's talk about some of the treatment that Leah Michele has been accused of on set of Glee. So Leah has been in the spotlight for a while. Like, she was a Broadway kid. She's literally Rachel Berry. Like, she is Rachel Berry to a T. I mean, honestly, not a surprise to me because, again, she is a theater kid with so much talent. Like, for sure, when she was growing up, like in high school, all of like her, you know, school performances, her plays and shit that she did like as a kid, she definitely was getting the lead for everything. There's no way that she isn't the most gassed up form of a theater kid, which is honestly a terrifying thing to be around. Hearing that Leah Michele is awful doesn't surprise me whatsoever because I just think, have you ever met a theater kid who's not awful? And I say that as a theater kid, but like, especially the ones who were the best, they were the best and they knew it. It was kind of speculated that Naya Rivera and Leah really did not get along. I don't know where the rumors like came from originally, but Naya definitely confirmed a lot of them in her book. She released a memoir in 2016 called Sorry Not Sorry, where she wrote, quote, "I don't hate Leah and I never have. I think Leah didn't like sharing the spotlight. She has a hard time separating work from our outside friendship, whereas it was a lot easier for me. Leah was a lot more sensitive though, and sometimes it seemed like she blamed me for anything and everything that went wrong." Naya also talked about how by the end of season 6 of Glee, Leah Michele was completely like refusing to talk to Naya at that point. So Naya was truly like the whistleblower in talking about the way that Leah acted on the set of Glee particularly. Like I said, Leah Michele definitely had a reputation within the Broadway, like New York community for being difficult to work with, but Naya was really the first one from the Glee cast to insinuate that she had a less than savory experience working with Leah. Again, Naya's memoir came out in 2016, and I would say things with Leah Michele didn't really pop off until 2020. So Leah tweeted about her outrage of George Floyd being killed, and Samantha Marie Ware, who played Jane Howard on Glee, responded saying, "LMAO, remember when you made my first TV gig a living hell? Because I'll never forget. I believe you told everyone that if you had the opportunity, you would shit in my wig amongst other traumatic microaggressions." This absolutely took off on Twitter. I feel like a lot of the Glee cast was just tweeting like shady gifs of everything and being like spill the tea. People a part of the Glee cast were liking this tweet, and honestly it made a lot of people question the rest of the cast of Glee. Like, was Leah really this like horrible person to work with? So Heather Morris, who played Brittany S. Pierce, decided to tweet about it. She wrote, quote, "Let me be very clear. Hate is a disease in America that we are trying to cure, so I would never wish that hate to be spread to anyone else. With that said, was she unpleasant to work with? Very much so. For Leah to treat others with the disrespect that she did for as long as she did, I believe she should be called out." She apologized publicly, but people really just wanted to know what was going on behind closed doors, according to the rest of the cast. There was an actor who was an extra on season 5 of Glee, and he claimed that Darren Criss, who is a sweetie pie, by the way. Darren Criss is so sweet. Anyway, according to him, Darren Criss like invited him to sit at lunch with like the cast and everyone. And apparently Leah made a big deal about it and ultimately made him leave the table because he quote unquote didn't belong there. Amber Riley, who played Mercedes, also spoke out and said, quote, "I'm not going to say that she's racist. I wish Leah Michele the best and I hope she has an amazing pregnancy. I hope that she has grown and that she understands. The apology she put out, I didn't read it because I told y'all I don't give a shit about it, but she reached out to me. I responded to her, and that's where it ends for me. I haven't talked to that girl in 2 years. I have no hatred or ill will on that end." Usually where there's smoke, there's fire, so I think it makes a lot of sense. All of these people have been speaking out against the way that they've been treated by Leah Michele, and bullying comments, racist comments, really horrible things. Overall, I feel like collectively, it's definitely been agreed that Leah Michele is just for sure difficult to work with at the minimum. That's where the tone is kind of being set for Glee. I also want to dive into the pressure that the show had, not only on the cast, but also on the crew. Obviously, first and foremost, they're in an uncomfortable work environment because these are people who didn't speak out against, you know, the lead of the show until well after the show was finished. The Glee cast was just so messy, but I again feel like that is expected when you put a bunch of early 20s young, like attractive actors all together, and they're gonna just all date each other. They're going to have drama. It's overall just like, it's gonna give a high school vibe because they're literally playing high schoolers. Like, of course it was messy. But was the way that Ryan Murphy had the cast and crew working on Glee unethical? This has been a question for quite some time, actually. Like, I found a lot of forums from like 2011 of people talking about how the Glee cast is completely overworked. For most of the actors in Glee, this was their first job. Absolutely nobody expected Glee to be a success. Honestly, still when I hear the concept of Glee, I'm like, how was it so successful? But like, when you watch it, you just know it's iconic. But once the pilot of Glee dropped, it was instantly a success. And that was when everything turned, and I feel like the cast and the crew were being worked to the bone. The cast of Glee were forced to make Twitter accounts to live tweet every episode of Glee because that engagement was getting more people to watch the show. They also went on tours, and you have to understand like that you know, the way that Glee is as a show, like, as much as you watch it like any other TV show, there's so much more aspects that go into Glee than the normal, like, average television show. The actors are in the studio having to record the actual, like, vocals of all the songs. They have to learn the choreography, do the choreography. Like, apparently standard shooting days are 12 hours long of, like, a normal TV set. But Ryan Murphy, who is the producer of Glee, made the actors work 16-hour days, which is pretty ridiculous. And also, a lot of the times, the cast had, like, a day, if not hours, to learn new songs and new choreography. Like, it was all just very, very quick. Because you have to understand, like, you're kind of mixing Broadway in with the aspect of television. It is a lot of work. It also just puts this immense pressure and, like, strenuous work on these actors and the crew. And also just the pressures from becoming famous overnight, essentially, like, that these kids had was a lot. And I think a lot of people, you know, that's where they're gonna point fingers to first, especially in the case of Cory Monteith. So Cory Monteith in the beginning of Glee, like, seemed to be, you know, coping okay with everything. Like, he was really excited about the show. He moved to California from Canada, and he was living with his roommate, Justin Neal. According to his roommate, Cory got to the point of fame where he absolutely began to hate it. He even allegedly said that he wouldn't wish fame on his worst enemy because of the difficulties that were being put on him. I wasn't aware that Cory had such a hard experience growing up in regards to drug and alcohol addiction. I had no clue, because Cory's childhood experience is incredibly different from Finn Hudson, obviously. Cory did so well at portraying Finn, which is like a sweet, wholesome, like, little sweetie pie, a do-good kind of kid, like, stayed out of trouble, literally thought that he could get a girl pregnant by making out with them in the hot tub. Glee is so great. Like, I can't. But Finn Hudson's character really did not align with Cory's true past. A lot of the people around Cory, like his, you know, publicists and stuff, really wanted to try and keep Cory's past hidden. But he began doing drugs and drinking alcohol at the age of 13 years old, which is just so sad. This poor kid was in rehab for drugs at the age of 19. After his family and friends staged an intervention and he became sober. Within his sobriety, he was doing really well, like, on a personal level, and I think one of his friends or something suggested he should try acting out. He decided to give it a go, and obviously it ended up paying off. He sent in the silliest little Glee audition ever. I just think it's so cute, and it's so Finn Hudson. And obviously he booked the role. I do think he was getting to a point where the fame was too much. He was, like, getting stalked by people. It was just honestly really chaotic, and like I said, his roommate claims he wouldn't wish fame on his worst enemy. Cory was sober for most of the time, but then it seemed like in 2013 was when the relapses started to begin. At least, like, public knowledge wise. I don't know if anything happened before then, but a lot of people blame a lot of different things for the relapse. I think it's wrong to blame any, like, specific person for Cory's relapse. Either way, Cory ended up returning to rehab in April of 2013. In the Price of Glee docuseries, the hair department head, Doug Kirkpatrick, talked about how he worked with the Glee cast for a while, and even when he stopped working for Glee, a lot of them would hit him up for haircuts, and Cory was one of those people. In 2013, right after Cory had left rehab, he called up Doug for a haircut. He claimed that he noticed that Cory was under the influence of alcohol, which concerned him because he knew that he had just left rehab and should not be drinking at all. I guess Doug decided to ask about it, and according to him, Cory said, quote, "I was at a party and hadn't been drinking, and I wanted to have a drink, but I knew I shouldn't." And then Doug claims that Cory also said that he was told by a certain cast member of Glee that night, quote, "If you want to have a drink, you should have a drink. I'll be here. You can trust that I'll always be here." Doug refused to share the name of the cast member who allegedly told Cory that he could have a drink. It seemed like everyone was pretty aware of Cory's addiction problems. In March of 2013, when they were filming season 4 of Glee, like the last few episodes of it, Cory was actually written out of the last few episodes because Ryan Murphy and I guess some of the other creators or cast of Glee, they don't like specify exactly who it was, staged like an emergency intervention with Cory and were like, you need to go back to rehab. So he did in April of 2013. Sadly, we know that Cory didn't end up staying sober because just 3 months after he checked out of rehab for the final time, he passed away from a heroin overdose on July 13th of 2013. He was staying at the Fairmont Pacific Rim Hotel in Vancouver, Canada. It's so heartbreaking. Like, it's really, really sad. And a lot of people believe truly that if Cory had never been on Glee, that he would still be here to this day. I obviously think it's impossible to tell if that's true, like whether or not someone would have relapsed if their life went in a different direction. So I don't know. I just don't think it's like fair to really speculate that, but I think the death of Cory Monteith like forever just changed the pace of Glee, like, and the way people looked at it. It wasn't really considered a curse until Mark Salling. So Mark Salling, who played Noah Puckerman, was the next member of Glee to pass away. Things started really taking off about the Glee curse. So Mark was arrested in 2015 after his girlfriend at the time found pictures of children, you know, CP, on his computer. She reported it to the police department. He ended up pleading guilty in December of 2017 to the federal charges, admitting that he had downloaded over 25,000 photos of children onto his computer. Disgusting. But somehow he faced a sentence of only 4 to 7 years, but it was, I mean, I know how. It's because of the plea bargain that he had. He was complying with the police, and he claimed that he had several people who he could call out by name who were involved in the same thing. Like, again, this is someone who should have been going to jail for the rest of his life, like, regardless of who he whistleblows. Like, the fact that it got lowered to a 4 to 7 year sentence was just, like, basically nothing. Because of this plea agreement, like, it just shows that there were probably a lot of people on that list that the police wanted to hear. However, Mark Salling seemingly took his own life on January 30th of 2018, where he was found hung on a tree in a Los Angeles forest. A lot of weird ass coincidences on Glee were specifically with Mark. Like, I just feel like his character was doing insane, but like ended up translating into his real life.
Ask you something. Where do you think you'll be in the year 2030?
Broadway. Twinsies.
Walking. In jail, or dead, or both.
Lord and I are gonna make a sex tape.
For the downside, are you aware that because you're under 18 years of age, making and owning a sex tape could make you guilty of child?
I overheard you talking to that sophomore girl yesterday.
Whoa, back off, dude. You got a fiance. Plus, I called dibs on all the chicks whose boobs aren't done growing yet.
Not that, okay?
Aren't you underage?
I have a fake ID.
Good enough for me.
And it's just really, really uncomfortable, especially when you know that, like, obviously he knew at the time that that's something, like, he was doing, and that's what he was doing behind closed doors. The irony in some of the stuff is just unsettling. I never thought anything differently of Mark Salling's death. Like, I just assumed that he committed suicide. That's just what I had heard, and I never really thought too much into it. But apparently a blind item came out before he died, actually, in 2016, basically claiming that Mark was set to give a list of names of people in the industry who he distributed CP to. After his death, apparently there were talks of there being defensive wounds on his hands where it looked like he had tried to fight off an attacker. I will say it's extremely strange how often his case got postponed. Like, his trial kept getting pushed back because he kept releasing the names of several people who were involved. According to the blind item, one of these people was also working on Glee. I don't know, your guess is as good as mine. The blind item was insinuating this was sort of like a Jeffrey Epstein situation where perhaps Mark Salling did not choose to take his own life and he was actually murdered by some of the people who were maybe going to be exposed by his list of people that he was trying to, like, get less years in prison for. Like I said, I hadn't ever really thought about it until I was doing the research for this video because both scenarios make sense. But I will say, like, again, the fact that his sentence, like, should have been life in prison and that it was lowered to 4 to 7 years is kind of terrifying because it shows just how much information he was willing to tell the police. Who knows what he knew, and he was set to tell everyone what he knew in just a couple weeks, but ultimately he died. I don't even know what to think from that, but That was really when the curse of Glee started popping off, and then of course the death of Naya Rivera ended up being the final piece to the puzzle of the Glee curse theory believers. On July 8th of 2020, Naya Rivera was declared missing. She was on a pontoon boat on Lake Piru with her 4-year-old son. Her son Josie was found alone on the pontoon boat unharmed, and that's when the search for Naya Rivera began. There's like kind of a lot of theories going on for a couple of days where no one really knew what was happening. Sadly, her body was recovered from Lake Piru on July 13th of 2020. Coincidentally, exactly 7 years to the date of Cory Monteith's death. With Naya's death, it's unsure exactly what happened. Basically, like, the general consensus is that she ended up deciding to go swimming from the boat, and the current was too strong, so she was able to get her son back on the boat safe and sound, but obviously did not end up being able to save herself, and she drowned. Honestly, what's really sad and like the most interesting part to me that came out of The Price of Glee was that Naya's father was in the documentary. He actually FaceTimed Naya like minutes potentially before her death. She called him to ask, like, I guess her family were a family of boaters, so she called him to ask if it was safe to go swimming in the water. When Naya told her dad that the pontoon boat did not have an anchor, he was like, absolutely not, do not get in the water. Apparently he just had an awful feeling because the wind was really blowing strong that day. Again, the pontoon boat didn't have an anchor, and he just felt like something was off and something bad was gonna happen. And that is so sad that like his fear became a reality. I can't even imagine. Naya Rivera brings us to the third death of the main cast of Glee. There were also some disturbing deaths that happened behind the scenes that I don't think a lot of people really talk about. They did in the documentary. Like, I had no idea that this was a thing, and honestly, it's really, really scary. A man named J.A. Byerly and his brother Mitchell worked on the set of Glee, but during the 6th season, Mitchell ended up committing suicide, and his brother J.A. claims the intenseness of the show contributed to his brother's death. Production assistant on Glee, Nancy Motes, also died by suicide, and Matthew Morrison's stand-in, Mark Watson, apparently died suddenly from some sort of car fire, but it wasn't really specified exactly what happened. Also, the assistant director, Jim Fuller, died of a heart attack unexpectedly. So all of these things just adding up to a lot of darkness surrounding a TV show that is about a bunch of high schoolers like singing songs. Really, like, when you watch Glee, it doesn't feel like a dark heaviness to it. The fact of the matter is that there was, and it's really, really sad. The last thing I want to touch on is one of the like darker things that I didn't know about that happened in regards to Glee. Melissa Benoist and Blake Jenner, who played Marley and Ryder on Glee, they were like a thing on the show, but I never knew that they were actually a thing in real life. They ended up getting married, but the two divorced after 2 years of marriage. In November of 2019, Melissa posted an Instagram video speaking out about her and Blake's marriage and saying that it was a very abusive relationship. She didn't specifically mention Blake by name, but the details add up to her relationship with Blake. And also later, Blake did confess and apologize publicly to Melissa. Blake at one point threw a phone at Melissa's face and it hit her in the eye, causing permanent damage, a torn iris, which has made one of her pupils permanently enlarged. Apparently the two ended up creating a fake story about how she tripped down the stairs and hit her eye on a potted plant. It's just like so nuts how many dark things surrounded Glee. Yes, it's a big cast. There's a lot of, you know, crew, and of course some things are gonna happen. At the end of the day, have you ever heard of another TV show with this much darkness surrounding it? Like, no. It's clearly, like, I don't know if I believe that Glee is like cursed necessarily, but it is definitely something really, really dark going on overall, and it's honestly really, really sad. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this though. If you're a big Gleek, like, what did, especially actually, if you're a Gleek who was watching the show as it was like airing, what did you guys like, how did it feel to like have all of this unfold about like one of your favorite TV shows? I would love to like know what that was like, you know, for the people who were watching it as it was happening. Because again, like I said, I didn't watch it until after Cory, Mark, and Naya had passed away, so I obviously knew that that had happened and I knew everything that had occurred. I just can't imagine like what it would be like to have like your favorite show of all time and then so much dark shit come out about it. 3 of the main cast dying. Like, it's insane. It's so sad and just crazy. So let me know your guys' thoughts. But that is it for today's video. If you guys liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below. If you guys have any other things like this that you want me to cover, I feel like this is similar to like my Quiet on Set documentary video. So if there's anything you want me to talk about, let me know. But that is it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and subscribe for new videos every week. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.